Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Get up, get out, do something. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Good morning and welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. I am Phil Brilliant, substituting for Jeremy this morning as he takes care of some personal matters. It is Tuesday, July 12th. It is 7:08 in the morning, and it is time to get up, get out, and do something. It'll be a beautiful day. 82 degrees is a high. It is a time to, if you're not going to work today, then go to the beach, because there's probably nothing better to do. But I am here this morning. It is 7 o'clock, which means we have Mark Feitelson from Precision Analytical Services, located here in Toms River. And I have known Mark for my entire career as an environmental consultant, and actually my entire career as a radio broadcaster now, too. So
wow,
this has worked
full
very
day.
What's that?
Full day, almost.
A full day. Yeah, we're definitely, I think I've put together 5 days now. But good morning. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining us this morning. You know,
Phil.
And I know we're kidding. All kidding aside, this is a normal time you wake up every day.
Yeah, -5 hours.
Minus 5 hours. I was saying to Zach this morning, it was like 6:45, and you hadn't texted me yet, and I was like, I wonder if Mark's still sleeping. Yeah, this might be tough. But Mark, here at the Jersey Shore, originally grew up in Middlesex County.
Grew up in East Brunswick, pretty much 3rd grade through high school. Went to Fairleigh Dickinson up in Teaneck. Strolled down to Miami for a year at graduate school, then got my master's at William and Mary in Williamsburg in '82.
Okay. All in chemistry, business, what's your...
Started in marine biology, because I had encompassed a semester in St. Croix, so I switched majors pretty quickly. And then went to University of Miami, Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Science for 1 year. And then got accepted into College of William and Mary, associated with the Virginia Institute of Marine Science for an environmental chemistry program that they initiated.
Okay. And so, I mean, environmental chemistry back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
I mean, new up-and-coming field, wasn't like what we experience every day now.
It wasn't so much in the news back then.
Yeah, wasn't much. What did you really think back then that 30, 40 years later you'd be doing?
I had hoped to raise conch in the Bahamas. It didn't work out for me.
I knew this was going to be an enjoyable interview. But instead, what do you do every day?
I run drinking water laboratory in Toms River. We have about 15 employees now. I started 22 years ago in my basement by myself, getting the lab certified, going out getting clients, running the samples, typing the reports, collecting the money, and doing it all over again for about 18 hours a day.
And the 18 hours, but I know with you, the 18 hours probably started at noon every day. Yeah, it wasn't the first. Well, back then,
yeah,
I guess
but
you had
I go
to get
to
up.
sleep at 6 a.m.
Yeah, you go to 6. I know, that's right. This morning you woke up at the time you usually go to sleep, and but what you said though is so drinking water, private wells, and really concentrating. I mean, you've basically had to concentrate on everything. I mean, you had to do the business end of it, the sales end, as well as do all the analysis.
Right, and all the technical end.
Yeah, I remember coming into your basement, and it really looked like a high tech lab anywhere else, in a corporate complex, but it was your basement.
Exactly.
And so samples that went through there had the same care, the same results of any other lab.
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say that. There are some labs that don't do such great work, but compared to the good labs, yeah, we were right up there.
So let's talk about drinking water testing. Okay, somebody has a private well. And yeah, you can drink that water.
I don't know. I haven't tested it yet.
I know.
But it's Poland Spring. I trust it.
You trust Poland Spring? Okay. Can we hold you to that?
We use it for blanks when our own system is down.
Okay, good. Because actually, I mean, not to deviate a little, I always tell people that bottled water is not a food. So basically, there is limited testing on bottled water.
There's no required testing for bottled water.
So
it's all marketing and packaging.
Now, is all bottled water alike?
No, there are some good companies and some irreputable companies or private labels. You don't know you don't know what you're getting. I've tested bottled water that I knew came right out of a city tap because there were high levels of chloroform in it, which is a disinfection byproduct of chlorinating water.
Okay.
So we knew that particular bottled water was unfiltered, untreated, just taken out of a tap, bottled, and sold.
Now, we don't know who our sponsors are, so we don't want to name names.
I don't even remember the company.
Yeah, that's fine. But so we're back to private wells. So people have a well on their property, and they're just simply been living there for 30 years. How is there a regimen people should be testing their wells and what they should be testing for? What are they looking for these days?
Well, people usually say, I've been drinking this water for 30 years, and it's nice and cold, and it tastes good. But you can't smell, taste, or observe most contaminants in drinking water. You need very sensitive equipment to detect these compounds.
And when you talk compounds, volatile organic compounds,
right.
metals,
other inorganics like nitrates, nitrites, fluoride, chloride, phosphate, sulfate.
Basically everything and anything. Yeah.
We have a big scan that we provide for private testing. It's about 100 different parameters that's included in the package.
Okay. Now, is that the same package that's required when there's a property transaction, the Private Well Testing Act?
That's closer to 30 parameters. So the private test is much more extensive than what's required by the county or the state for a real estate transaction for a building that's supplied it's drinking water by a well.
Okay. And I mean, do you find that people, I guess, really pay attention to their wells? Are they, like some people have treatment systems on, some people don't?
It depends what's on the news. Usually news ignites a little interest. And the more public knowledge is out there, the more people are going to be proactive in ensuring that their water is safe by testing it once a year.
Okay. Now you talk about what's in the news. We're gonna hold off and we'll tease into the break what's in the news today. But a couple of years ago, the big thing in the news was radium. Everybody was looking at the radioactivity in water. I think down here in Ocean County, you don't test for that. Up in North Jersey, you do?
Well, no, we test for it. It's county by county. Counties are selected that have the highest probability or have a history of having radiological positive hits.
Is Ocean County one of them?
Ocean County is
one of them. Oh, it is one of them. Okay, right. I did not realize that.
Ocean and Monmouth.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, people come in, they call you up, and they say, hey, I just took this sample. Can I run it? Or are you going out to them and taking the samples?
It's required for any regulatory work that the laboratory have its own representative do the sampling, because people could bring a water sample from anywhere and claim it's from their house.
Right. And or they don't really know how to take a sample properly, and basically they'll go empty out their gas can in the garage, fill it up with water, and bring it to you.
Well, usually not that bad, but you do need specific containers for specific groups of analyses. So, for instance, bacteria, you need a sterilized bottle. For volatile organics, you can't have any air bubbles in the sample. For metals, you need nitric acid as a preservative, and so forth. There are some unpreserved samples that we can test in the lab if somebody brings in a bottle, but there are some tests that would be invalid just because it wasn't sampled properly.
And if I'm living in a house and I have a well and I have septic, and we'll assume that everything was properly constructed,
right,
and the well's in the front yard and the septic's in the backyard, or vice versa, do I in the sandy soils here in Ocean County, do I have a potential contaminant on my own property on my septic field?
Usually depends on how deep the well is. If you have a shallow well, it could be impacted much more easily than a deeper well.
Okay.
And a lot of wells aren't even up to code, but they're pre-existing, so they're grandfathered in. When you sell the house, you don't know where the well is. You don't know how deep it is. Your dog could be peeing on the lawn. You could be drinking it the next day.
That's my line. I use that all the time. I tell people that all the time because they have the 25-foot hand-dug wells that Uncle Elmer put in 70 years ago.
Point-driven with a sledgehammer.
Yep, definitely the way. So we did tease a little bit what's in the news. We've been a lot in the news relative to Flint, Michigan, Newark, New Jersey, about lead in water. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that and what people should be thinking relative to lead in the water and testing their homes or their businesses. Remember to join the conversation at 732-505-1160. Back in a moment.
Wake up with Jeremy Grunin wherever you go. Download the Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Connect with Jeremy, 732-505-1160. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160, 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. It is 7:23, so Karen Markey, you better be in the office behind your desk working, and because if you're not, just go search for Pokemon in downtown Toms River. I am here with Mark Feitelson of Precision Analytical Services. Did you see people looking for Pokemon when you came in this morning?
No, just for donuts.
Just for donuts and Uncle Dudes. Yeah.
Donut dudes.
Donut Dudes?
Mm-hmm.
Donut Dudes out there. So when we went to break, we started talking about what's in the news. And probably for the past year now, it has been lead in water. And it started in Flint, Michigan.
Thank God for Flint.
Thank God for Flint. Why do you say that?
Because thank God for Newark.
It is definitely, I mean, it's interesting. And I say, and I asked you before, why are we finding so much lead in water now? And your answer to me was?
Well, because we're looking for it.
Yeah. Always been there. Basically, I always, I've been telling people, what do you expect? Pipes are made of lead. It's going to happen at some point in time. And I think Flint was probably the extreme. But
that was a terrible example. They switched the water supplies to a much more corrosive water supply, which was the river. And that stripped off all the protective coating from their previous water supply. That was treatment that was added that adds a little calcium to the inside of the pipes, which somewhat shielded the lead from dissolving into the water. So when that was stripped away and they have all this corrosive water, then the lead supply, the lead results skyrocketed. Plus, there was lead in the source water.
Yeah, so I mean, it was basically the perfect storm.
Exactly.
And it's probably something as chemists sitting in a laboratory should have seen coming. And I think there's some questions relative to if they, would have known the source of the lead before they went in there, what this was going to do to their piping.
Well, they saved $100,000.
Right. So you're bringing politics into it, because that was what it was all about. It was all about saving money.
Trying to save money.
But I think at the end of the day, the lawsuits, the liabilities, and the cost of water testing will probably exceed the $100,000 they saved.
Yeah, by a small factor.
By a small factor. Just a small factor. We'll see what the epidemiology results show at the end. But you mentioned Newark schools, and I know it's been a lot of the press that Newark has gone into a program for testing their water.
They've been very proactive. We've been on the ground floor of that study with the New Jersey DEP and the Newark school system. And the state developed a very rigorous sampling plan and protocols for sampling and analysis, and we're one of the 3 labs on the project.
Okay, great. I want to talk about that when we come back because we have to go to another break, of course, and this is the news. But when we come back, I want to talk about, how you got into the schools and, what it took for Newark to become proactive. And are there other people in New Jersey, school systems, businesses becoming proactive, and are people making them become active and start doing their testing? Remember to join the conversation, 732-505-1160. We'll be back after the news.
The news never stops at WOBMAM.com. Get the latest from WOBM News, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Live from the Jersey Shore to the world. Get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Take the show wherever you go. Download the free Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. Join the conversation, 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. Good morning. I am Phil Brilliant. It is Tuesday, July 12th at 7:35, and everybody should be on the road listening to us on 1160 and 1310 AM. Or if you are walking, searching around for your Pokemon, you should have your Radio Pup app open to WOBM AM. And I am joined here this morning by Mark Feitelson of Precision Analytical Services, and we went to break talking about why we are finding lead in water, and the basic answer of because we're looking for it now.
That's a good answer.
I love that answer. So, we talked about newer school systems doing it. So is there any mandates out there yet that people need to start testing water at businesses and school systems?
Well, school systems that are on public water may fall under sampling under the lead and copper rule. So townships can choose to sample at schools, homes, businesses under the lead and copper rule, which has a maximum contaminant level of 50, but an action level of 15 ppb, or micrograms per liter. So the interesting point about maximum contaminant levels.
Yeah.
They're different for everybody. If you're on well water, it's 5 parts per billion. If you're on city water, it's 15 parts per billion. But the real MCL is 50 parts per billion. So when you ask the DEP, what's the MCL for lead? They all get in a circle and do an Indian rain dance and tell me it's a very good question, and then they move on to the next question.
Right, because they're not willing to commit to the answer.
Well, because they're under different protocols, different programs, and they don't coincide with each other.
Now, is it strictly DEP or is Department of Health involved in this also?
Well, it's more from EPA regulations that the DEP has to follow. And then there are groundwater rules, groundwater regulations, public water rules and regulations, and they don't concur with each other. There are different maximum contaminant levels depending on your water source.
Now, when we talk maximum contaminant levels, we can bring it, excuse the phrase, dumb it down a little. We're talking about, is that health-based, risk-based? How is that number derived?
It's supposed to be health-based.
Okay. So that is the level that people should not consume above?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the maximum amount you're allowed in the water for it to be considered safe. Anything over that level will be considered unsafe.
So we're talking 50 as the level, but you said 15
is the action level where you're supposed to do something to correct the problem.
So 15, I have 16 in my water. I got to do something to correct the problem.
Correct.
And 50, so if it's in 50, if I'm at 60, I'm replacing my water system?
Well, I don't know what the corrective action would be. It would depend on the situation.
Okay. So without giving away specifics and things like that, what are you seeing on results coming out of samples? Are you seeing majority high numbers over 50 or just things over 15?
We've seen from non-detect to parts per million, extremely high levels in some of the school samples we've taken. And we've sampled all over the state and done samples from Bergen County, Essex County, Ocean County, Monmouth County. A lot of schools are calling just to make sure that their water meets the criteria.
And I know that Governor Christie had either put an executive order out or an administrative order, something like that, basically funding remedial action, the corrective action aspect. Is there anything out there now that people can get funded to do the testing itself?
I don't believe anything's been legislated yet as far as making the money available.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of politics involved here.
Yeah, politics usually gets in the way and ends up costing people and the state a lot more than.
Look what happened in Flint, Michigan with the politics.
Yep, that is the perfect example that we all want to avoid. So I'm sitting in my house, I'm listening to us right now. I have a private well. I haven't tested it for years. I may or may not have a treatment system. What should make me test my water?
It's recommended to test your water once a year if you're on a private well to make sure that no contaminants have infiltrated the well. The water underground travels at some rate of speed, and it could bring with it contaminants from elsewhere. So there could be a gas station 2 miles away with a leaky gas tank underground, and it may take a couple of years for it to hit your well. If you don't test it frequently, you won't know it's there until you can smell it, until the problem is so bad, you could already have health impact from it.
And it's not necessarily just industrial areas that we see when we drive up and down the turnpike. It could be any community that has business around it. You can have, as you say, gas stations, dry cleaners, any type of business that, if you're in an area that has septic, the businesses have septic too.
Correct. And even salt storage domes, I've found contamination in private wells from salt storage facilities for the road department.
Right. Actually, I don't know if we worked on that project together down in South Jersey, because we've done a lot of work together over the 30 years. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think we may have, where we actually had the salt plume from the rest area on 295.
I think I remember that job.
And it basically, all of the private wells in the area had been tested, and there was this huge plume of salt.
Right. So the sodium and the chloride levels were exceeding the limits of, you could use it for your saltwater pool.
That'd probably be the only use of it. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you? How do they contact you? How do they have you come out and do their water testing?
Well, you just have to call the lab, 732-914-1515. Or you remember the name Precision Analytical. Google us. We'll pop right up on the first page.
Do you have a website?
We have a nice website. It spells out all the regulatory testing we do and private testing as well.
And I think, if I remember correctly, because I'm looking at it, drinkingwatertesting.com.
It's hard to remember.
It's very hard to remember.
Mark, if you want to do drinking water testing, add COM to it.
Add COM to it. Look at that. Mark, thank you for coming in this morning. I appreciate it. I think it's important for people to really realize that they really want to know what they're drinking.
Exactly.
And that they should go out and be proactive.
More important, what they're not drinking.
Again, phone number one more time.
732-914-1515.
Precision Analytical Services. Thank you, Mark, for coming in bright and early this morning, and we will be back in a moment.
Thank you, Phil.